The city of Silene had a problem. A venomous reptile was poisoning the countryside. To appease the beast, the locals offered it 2 sheep daily. When they ran out of sheep, they were forced to sacrifice their own children. Eventually, the lottery fell upon the king's daughter. She was left alone by a misty lake to await the monster. But as the creature emerged, a wandering knight on a white horse pierced the beast with his lance and saved the princess. This timeline tracks the story's spread. The cultural peak hits the 13th century, driven by the Golden Legend, standardizing the Dragon Slayer narrative. But panning backwards 700 years to the 3rd century, when the real George lived, the monster disappears from his biography entirely. To understand history's most famous monster hunter, we have to strip away the medieval chivalry and look at the Roman martyr underneath. Historical records describe George as a Cappadocian Greek, an officer in the Roman Praetorian Guard. In the year 303, during the Diocletianic persecution, George refused to renounce his Christian faith. For his defiance, he was arrested, tortured, and eventually beheaded. His early followers venerated him for this act of resistance. He was a man who stood up to a tyrannical emperor, maintaining his convictions at the cost of his life. This original legacy was built on passive endurance. There was no white horse, no magic lance, and no record of armed combat. After his execution, George was buried in Lydda, a city in modern-day Israel. This physical site, the Church of St. George, became the geographic center of his early cult. Lydda sits near the shoreline of an older Greek myth, where Perseus slew a sea monster to save Andromeda. Over time, storytelling blurred the 2 legends. The sea monster became the Roman emperor, and the rescued virgin represented the persecuted church. Successful myths are rarely invented from scratch. They are often built by recycling local geographical folklore to fit new religious frameworks. By the 11th and 12th centuries, European crusaders were arriving in the Middle East. They were fighting brutal campaigns and needed a warrior figure to inspire their soldiers. When these armies encountered the merged dragon-slaying myth in the Levant, they adopted it. They took the metaphor of the Christian soldier defeating the monster and exported it back to Europe as a literal account of holy victory. Look at the heraldic banners hanging here inside St. George's Chapel at Windsor Castle. The exported myth was integrated into European heraldry and royal identity, with the saint's red-on-white cross becoming a national symbol for multiple countries. George's narrative survived because it was militarized. His story was redesigned to justify and inspire the mechanics of medieval warfare. Today, George is the patron saint of geographically distinct nations like England, Georgia, and Ethiopia, where he is venerated in sites like this rock-hewn church in Lalibela. His iconography is embedded in the physical landscape of these regions. In Tbilisi, Georgia, a golden statue of the Dragon Slayer dominates the city's central square. The myth is flexible enough to transcend Christianity. George is revered in Islamic texts as a prophetic figure and appears in Greek folklore as a protector against pirates and vampires. The legend of St. George is a 1,000-year-old crowdsourced collaboration. It demonstrates how humanity layers real history with local myths to create a recurring archetype of resilience, proving that regardless of the era, we still rely on these stories to help us face our own dragons.